The checkpoint officer's flashlight danced over the tinted glass of the expensive black SUV, illuminating the rain-soaked night. Pastor Jeremiah leaned back calmly, his fingers tapping lightly on the steering wheel. He was a familiar face on this route. No one had ever questioned him before. Tonight, however, something felt off. The officer peered closer, his eyes squinting against the darkness, then signaled Jeremiah to lower the window. "Good evening, Pastor," the officer greeted cautiously, recognizing the popular preacher instantly. "Apologies, sir, routine stop. May I inspect your vehicle?" Jeremiah forced a warm smile, masking the sudden tightness in his chest. "Of course, officer. Nothing to hide here." Stepping out into the drizzle, Jeremiah's polished shoes hit the wet asphalt, reflecting the faint glow of streetlights. As the officer moved towards the back of the car, Jeremiah's pulse quickened. For the first time in years, panic seeped beneath his carefully maintained facade. Another officer, younger and more enthusiastic, opened the boot without hesitation, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. He froze, his breath catching sharply. "Sir," his voice cracked, trembling, "come and see this." The first officer rushed over, eyes widening as he looked into the trunk. Jeremiah swallowed hard, his stomach tightening in dread. In plain view, wrapped carelessly in blood-stained cloth, were 3 severed human heads, their lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. Instantly, chaos erupted. Radio calls went out urgently. Backup vehicles raced toward the checkpoint, their sirens slicing through the quiet streets. Within minutes, a crowd began to form, shocked faces and murmurs rippling through the gathering. News spread rapidly. Pastor Jeremiah, the man whose sermons filled stadiums, whose voice offered healing and redemption, had been caught transporting human remains. No one could believe it. For years, Jeremiah's church, Path of Miracles International, had become a sanctuary, drawing thousands weekly who hoped for divine intervention. Wealth, healing, restoration. It seemed Jeremiah's prayers carried weight. But the truth beneath the polished surface was much darker. Behind closed doors, Pastor Jeremiah had long abandoned faith. His miracles were carefully orchestrated illusions, his prophecies crafted through paid informants who discreetly gathered private information from congregants. The lavish lifestyle, luxury vehicles, and sprawling estates were built not on blessings, but deception and manipulation. Yet recently, the stakes had grown dangerously higher. Jeremiah had become entangled with a secretive, shadowy group known only to a select few in high society, a network rumored to engage in rituals promising untold power, protection, and wealth. In desperation to maintain his grip on fame and fortune, Jeremiah had crossed lines he never imagined possible. But now, standing drenched at a roadside checkpoint, his carefully curated life had begun to unravel violently. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, cameras flashed relentlessly. His congregation watched in disbelief as news vans arrived, capturing live footage of their beloved leader, the man they had revered as a spiritual father, being led away in disgrace. Detective Sarah Okoro, a seasoned investigator known for unraveling high-profile cases, arrived on the scene, determined to uncover the unsettling truth. As she stared into Jeremiah's once charismatic eyes, she recognized something she had seen countless times before: fear and deception. "How long did you think you could hide?" Sarah asked quietly, watching his expression closely. Jeremiah lifted his chin defiantly, attempting to regain a shred of dignity. "This is all a misunderstanding," he began softly. But even he knew the weight of his crimes had finally caught up with him. Sarah leaned closer, her voice cold, relentless. "3 heads, Pastor Jeremiah. There's no misunderstanding here." Jeremiah's eyes darkened, his facade slipping away. He knew his lies had run their course, and now, a storm was brewing that he could no longer control. But the question lingered: whose heads were they, and what desperate, dark rituals had led the city's most beloved pastor down this horrifying path? Detective Sarah Okoro wasted no time. By morning, news outlets had exploded with details of the shocking discovery. Public outrage swelled, and social media became a battleground of confusion, anger, and disbelief. Many fiercely defended Pastor Jeremiah, claiming this was a setup aimed at destroying a godly man's reputation. Others argued vehemently that the evidence was clear and undeniable. In a cold, stark interrogation room, Jeremiah sat opposite Sarah, looking smaller, less imposing without his tailored suit and stage presence. She studied him closely, her eyes piercing through his practiced expressions, looking for a crack in the carefully constructed mask. "Tell me, Pastor," Sarah began calmly, her voice smooth yet sharp as a blade. "How does a celebrated man of God end up with human heads in his car?" Jeremiah sighed, his shoulders slumping. The preacher knew he had little choice left but to weave a believable story, to shift the blame, to distance himself from the damning truth as much as possible. His voice shook slightly as he spoke, carefully measured to appear sincere. "I was framed," Jeremiah said quietly, looking directly at Sarah. "You must believe me, detective. Someone planted them there to ruin me." Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. She had expected this defense. She leaned forward, placing 2 photographs carefully on the table, directly under Jeremiah's gaze. "We already identified 2 of the victims," she said coolly, tapping the pictures gently with her finger. "This man was your assistant pastor, Jacob Ubani, and this young lady, Blessing Obi, attended your church's university outreach." Jeremiah's jaw tightened involuntarily. The detective was sharp, too sharp. He had underestimated her speed and determination. Gathering himself, he adopted an expression of shock and grief, eyes widening theatrically. "My God," Jeremiah whispered dramatically. "Jacob was like a brother to me. Who would do this? Blessing was young, vibrant. Such promise. This is clearly someone targeting my ministry to destroy me." Sarah leaned back in her chair, unimpressed. "Pastor, you've been deceiving people for a long time," she said bluntly. "We spoke with some of your former employees. They shared interesting details about your so-called miracles and prophecies. Paid actors, spies planted in your congregation. Your entire ministry built on lies." Jeremiah stiffened, anger briefly flashing across his face before he quickly masked it. "Those are baseless accusations," he retorted bitterly. "Are they?" Sarah smiled faintly, placing another photo down. Jeremiah's eyes widened in genuine shock this time. It was a grainy security camera capture from 2 nights ago. Jeremiah himself standing outside a hidden shrine on the outskirts of the city, a shrine known to local authorities as a den for ritualists. "What were you doing at the shrine, Pastor Jeremiah?" Sarah asked calmly. "This isn't a coincidence, is it?" Jeremiah felt a cold sweat bead along his temples. He had believed he covered every track. Clearly, his desperation for power and wealth had made him reckless, sloppy. Realizing denial wouldn't hold water any longer, he decided to shift tactics, hoping to control the narrative. His voice dropped to a pleading whisper. "Listen, detective, you don't understand. I was forced into this. Powerful men approached me. They threatened me. I refused at first, but then my life, my family's lives were put in danger. They forced me to perform these rituals. You must believe me." Sarah tilted her head, intrigued but skeptical. Jeremiah's desperate attempt at manipulation had become apparent, yet she sensed a kernel of truth buried deep beneath the lies. "Give me names," she demanded firmly, testing his claim. "Who forced you? Who exactly are these powerful men?" Jeremiah hesitated. For the first time in years, genuine fear flickered in his eyes. If he spoke these names, the consequences would be catastrophic. His life would undoubtedly be at risk. But wasn't it already crumbling? I can't," Jeremiah stammered finally, his voice barely audible. "You have no idea what they can do." Sarah leaned in, her gaze penetrating. "Then help me understand, Pastor. Why did you betray thousands who trusted you, who believed every word from your mouth? Why trade your soul for power?" Jeremiah lowered his head, eyes fixed on the cold table. The weight of his deception pressed heavily upon him, choking off his carefully rehearsed responses. Memories flooded him. desperate congregants handing over their last savings, sick people begging for healing he knew he couldn't provide. All the while, he had bathed himself in luxury and praise, addicted to the adoration, the respect, and ultimately the wealth. When he looked up again, his eyes were dark, hollow with remorse. Greed, he admitted bitterly. Power, control. At first, it was small lies, harmless illusions. But the deeper I went, the darker the demands became. And before I knew it, I was trapped, unable to turn back. Outside, the city continued to unravel. Furious protesters gathered outside Jeremiah's luxurious mansion, demanding justice. Congregants crowded outside his church gates, some praying fervently for his innocence, others cursing him openly. Media channels dissected every detail of Jeremiah's life, exposing lavish vacations, hidden accounts, suspicious deaths surrounding his ministry, all previously ignored or buried. Sarah knew she had cracked open Pandora's box. Yet the case was far from closed. She sensed that Jeremiah was only the tip of an iceberg, a vast network of corruption, crime, and ritualism that ran deeper into the city's elite than anyone could imagine. Just as Jeremiah opened his mouth to speak again, the door swung open abruptly. Sarah's partner, Detective Emeka, stepped urgently inside, eyes wide with concern. "Detective, there's been another discovery," he announced breathlessly. "At the church premises, more remains buried beneath the altar." Jeremiah went pale, realization dawning painfully that his dark secrets were fully exposed. Sarah stood up swiftly, casting a final piercing look at Jeremiah. "Pastor, it's over. Either you cooperate fully right now, or you'll drown alone." Jeremiah met her gaze, his charismatic mask entirely stripped away, leaving behind only a scared, desperate man caught in a web he himself had woven. Taking a shaky breath, he began to speak slowly. "You don't know how deep this runs, Detective. The people involved, they're everywhere. Politicians, businessmen, church leaders. Once you step into this darkness, there's no stepping out." Sarah stood firm, unshaken. "Give me names," she insisted firmly. Jeremiah glanced nervously around, paranoia evident. Finally, lowering his voice almost to a whisper, he spoke a single name that sent chills down Sarah's spine, confirming her worst fears about how far the corruption stretched. Jeremiah leaned in closer, glancing nervously towards the door as if the walls themselves were listening. He spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Chief Douglas Okafor." The air seemed to vanish from Sarah's lungs. Chief Douglas Okafor was no ordinary man. Wealthy, influential, and politically untouchable, he held the keys to virtually every corridor of power in the region. Known publicly as a generous philanthropist and a respected elder statesman, Okafor was considered untouchable. "You're sure?" Sarah questioned sharply, her voice trembling slightly despite herself. Jeremiah nodded solemnly, eyes hollow. "Yes, Chief Okafor introduced me to the network. He promised me fame, influence, unlimited power. I didn't realize how deeply I'd sink." Sarah glanced toward Detective Emeka, whose expression mirrored her own disbelief. The weight of Jeremiah's confession was staggering. Investigating someone like Chief Okafor meant crossing paths with powerful, dangerous people. It meant stepping into territory that could end careers or lives. Jeremiah continued softly, eyes fixed to the table. "The heads, they were meant for him, part of a ritual he arranged. I was delivering them tonight." Sarah's jaw tightened, her voice becoming icy. "What ritual?" Jeremiah exhaled slowly, struggling to find words. "It was for influence, wealth, control over elections. Human sacrifices. Chief Okafor believed it would guarantee political victories for his allies. I was his courier. My popularity gave me immunity from suspicion." Sarah leaned back, visibly shaken. Pieces were rapidly fitting together in a disturbing puzzle. Disappearances around election times. Prominent critics and rivals suddenly silenced, gone without a trace. It all connected horrifyingly now. Jeremiah looked at Sarah again, eyes desperate. "Detective, I'm a pawn in this game. If you go after Okafor, understand one thing, He won't hesitate to destroy anyone who opposes him. Not you, not me, nobody. Sarah straightened defiantly. I'll take my chances. Stepping out into the hallway, Sarah and Emeka exchanged worried glances. They both knew they had touched something explosive. Pursuing Chief Okafor was like diving into the belly of the beast itself. But Sarah felt a fire burning deep inside her. Too many lives had been sacrificed. Too many people had been deceived by men like Jeremiah and Okafor. Someone had to expose the darkness, no matter the cost. 2 days later, against all advice, Sarah requested an appointment with Chief Okafor at his luxurious estate in the affluent part of town. The chief accepted quickly, which only deepened her unease. Arriving at Okafor's mansion, Sarah felt as though she had stepped into another world. Expensive cars lined the driveway, guards stood watch at strategic points, and lavish decor surrounded her as she was escorted into a grand hall. The chief awaited her, seated regally on a carved throne-like chair, dressed impeccably in traditional attire. His confident gaze bore straight through her as she approached. Detective Sarah Okoro, his deep voice echoed, carrying authority effortlessly. I've heard much about you. Bold, intelligent, but perhaps too ambitious for your own good. Sarah met his gaze steadily, hiding any trace of fear behind a calm expression. Thank you for agreeing to see me, Chief Okafor. He smiled smoothly, gesturing for her to sit. Of course, when someone of your reputation requests an audience, one must wonder why. Sarah took a breath, carefully considering her next words. Pastor Jeremiah mentioned your name. He claims you orchestrated human sacrifices to influence elections. He identified you as the mastermind behind a dangerous network. Chief Okafor's smile didn't falter, but his eyes darkened ominously. Pastor Jeremiah is a desperate man, detective. Men in his position tend to fabricate wild tales. Sarah maintained her composure. We found evidence, Chief. Bodies at Jeremiah's church. Victims whose disappearances coincided precisely with elections. Do you deny involvement? Okafor leaned forward slightly, his voice low and dangerous. Be careful, detective. Accusations without concrete proof can be costly, especially when directed at the wrong people. Sarah refused to back down, her resolve hardening. I have proof. Jeremiah has given us locations, dates, and even names. Your name. For a long moment, silence hung thickly between them. Finally, Okafor leaned back and smiled coldly, his voice calm yet dripping with menace. Detective, you've stepped into waters deeper than you realize. The consequences of these allegations can go far beyond your career. Sarah stood firm, eyes unwavering. Justice matters more than my career. Okafor chuckled softly, the sound chilling her. Admirable, detective. But understand this clearly, this city runs on power, not morality. If you continue this investigation, it won't just be your career at risk. It will be your life. A heavy tension filled the air, charged with the undeniable threat in his words. Sarah knew she had pushed beyond the point of no return. Yet her determination only intensified. As Sarah turned to leave, Okafor called after her, his voice deceptively gentle. Detective, consider carefully your next step. Some truths are better left buried. Sarah paused briefly, refusing to look back. Not this truth, Chief Okafor. Returning to her car, she found Detective Emeka waiting anxiously. How did it go? He asked urgently. Sarah released a long breath, steeling herself. Exactly as expected. He threatened me. Emeka hesitated. Maybe we should hand this to someone else. You heard the rumors about Okafor's enemies disappearing without a trace. This is bigger than us. Sarah shook her head defiantly, staring resolutely ahead. That's exactly why we can't back down. Jeremiah's crimes are just the surface. The real evil is deeper, protected by money and politics. If we don't expose it now, we never will. Emeka nodded slowly, understanding the depth of the danger they faced. Then let's do this right. Quietly, carefully. We build the strongest case possible before they strike. Sarah clenched her fists, determination surging. She knew they were racing against time, up against forces capable of anything to bury the truth. Yet, fear had given way entirely to a fierce, relentless purpose. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room within Okafor's sprawling estate, the chief calmly made a call to an unknown number. His voice was chillingly calm, controlled. "We have a problem," Okafor said simply. "Detective Sarah Okoro knows too much. She refuses to back down." A cold voice replied, calm yet dangerous. "Consider it handled, Chief." As Okafor hung up, a sinister smile spread slowly across his face. Sarah had no idea how quickly the wolves would close in, how dangerous the next steps would become. But as night fell, she remained oblivious, determined, driven by the pursuit of justice. And deep within his holding cell, Jeremiah prayed desperately, not to God, but to anyone who would listen, knowing all too well that he'd unleashed a darkness far beyond his control. Sarah knew she didn't have much time. With Emika's help, she quickly compiled every piece of evidence, testimony, and witness statement. They worked late into the night, feeling the weight of danger closing in around them. Just as dawn began to break, Sarah's phone buzzed urgently. A private number calling. "Detective Okoro." The voice was distorted, unrecognizable. "Your life is in danger. They are coming for you right now. Leave your house immediately." Before she could respond, the line went dead. Sarah's heart raced. She grabbed the files and rushed out, narrowly escaping through the back just as two unmarked vehicles pulled quietly up front, armed men moving swiftly toward her door. Hidden away at Emika's family home in a distant village, they released their evidence online, sharing every gruesome detail anonymously to the media and police authorities. Public outrage erupted instantly, overwhelming even Chief Okafor's vast network of influence. Protests exploded nationwide, demanding justice. In the chaos, Chief Okafor attempted to flee but was swiftly arrested at the airport. Authorities raided his mansion, uncovering a horrifying trove of evidence. Lists of victims, secret financial transactions, and recordings implicating politicians, businessmen, and even church leaders across the region. Jeremiah, recognizing he was doomed either way, provided full cooperation and revealed every dark secret, every collaborator, and every victim. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, his ministry collapsed, and his once glorious name permanently tarnished. Sarah and Emika returned to the city months later, hailed as heroes who dared confront corruption. Though Sarah knew danger might always lurk around her, she felt a profound sense of peace, knowing justice had finally triumphed over evil. Morals of the story: all that glitters is not gold. Not everyone who appears righteous has good intentions. Always trust actions over appearances. Greed and ambition without morals can destroy you. Pastor Jeremiah allowed greed and ambition to cloud his judgment, leading to his downfall. Courage to stand for truth is vital. Sarah showed courage and determination despite grave dangers, proving that truth and justice ultimately prevail. Thank you for watching. Please let us know in the comments below where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories.